So we're going to start today with a little bit of a meditation, sort of. I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. This is just the power of thought in action. I want you to bring to mind a moment in which you felt joy. Whatever that moment happened to be. Allow yourself to re-experience the feeling of joy as it was then, fully remembered in yourself. Now I want you to move and remember a time in which you were happy. You have a moment? Allow yourself to feel that feeling of happiness. Okay, come on back. You can open your eyes, take a little breath. That's the 30-second vacation. We can all do that at any moment where we're feeling stressed or not in that situation of joy, is to bring ourselves back to the feeling of joy that we experienced at some point in our lives so that we know that it's available. That we can go back to that at any moment. We can use that for peace, for calmness, for love. For any aspect that we have experienced in our life that we would like to experience again, we can dive into that in any moment, because inside each of us is a yearning for more of this good in our life. It's the nature of being to want more good in our lives, to have a deeper intimacy in our relationships, to have a greater experience of good things, fun things, experiences of travel, or buying new things, or whatever is that brings you some joy in the area of abundance, or that moment of spiritual clarity in which you feel it's all going to be all right. All I got to do is maybe let go a little bit, and it's going to be all right. Whatever this is now, it came to pass. See, that's the nature of consciousness within us. It is here to evolve our awareness of our unity with life. Life doesn't need to evolve anywhere. It is. We call that spirit or God or Allah or universal intelligence. By whatever name you call it, it's already whole and complete. It's got nowhere to go. It's got nothing to become. It already is that. And so we're here to experience that as separateness, as individualizations of this same idea of wholeness, journeying back to the awareness of our wholeness. And in that journey, that's the conscious evolution of the soul within our individual lives as we come forward into this idea of our unity with life. So, the way that works is in this field of things, of conditions, we have sets of laws. We have physical laws. There are principles behind the physical laws that we explore and we find more deeper understanding to in every moment now. We're expanding our scientific knowledge of how these physical laws work. I won't go into the examples. If you're a scientist, you know more than I do. If you're interested, you can go explore all sorts of fun things that are happening in the world of science. Things like they're doing experiments with random number generators around the world in which people actually concentrate on these random number generators and they get astoundingly differentiable results. So a bunch of people think, okay, positive, and the numbers go where they shouldn't go in a random number generator to actually create positive results. Experiments in the physical world going on. In the same way that there are physical and principles by which this condition that we live in work, there are metaphysical principles by which we live as well. These are the unseen principles that we call spirituality in action. These are the parts that we can use in every day, and it is always working. That's what a principle is. It works because it always works. So like today's talk was, and is, titled, Use It or ... Now, there are usually two responses to this. Use it or? Lose it. Lose it? Or use it or? Else. The reality is use it or use it. You see, we are creative consciousness. And the metaphysical law is that we are thinking as consciousness embodied in this moment of condition is that we are the cause. Our thinking is the cause of what's happening in our lives. That's basic New Thought philosophy. Our new life begins with a new thought. And the flip side of that is that our current life is the result of our old thinking. So if you're liking it, cool. If not so much, don't worry about it. You can change it. That's the beauty of this, is we have the freedom. We've been cast into this physical condition, and we have absolute freedom of thought. Regardless of how you were raised, regardless of what you've been told, you have the freedom to investigate and think as you would think. Nobody can stop that. They can try. They can throw fear at you. We can use coercion, punishment, shame, all sorts of things to try to throw your thinking into somebody else's pattern. But the reality is, everybody has freedom of thought. And because there's a metaphysical principle that our thoughts become the things we experience, we have the freedom to change what we're experiencing. To bring more good, more joy, more love, more abundance into our lives by the very activity of beginning a new thought, a new train of thought, a new positive thought that is going to change the way we experience life. So there's a couple of tricks to this. I say they're tricks, but actually it's what that reading was talking about. There are blocks that we all have to experiencing a life of joyous love and freedom. And I say all of us because maybe not all of us, very few people in the history of mankind, which is a pretty long history, either 6,000 years or 300,000 years, depending on who you want to talk to. There's a history of mankind in which we can name the people, usually on two hands, who have actually achieved absolute freedom. They're the founders of what have become the major religions. The people we look to as avatars, healers, messiahs, who have reached a level of understanding of the metaphysical laws of life that they can do things like, say, get up and walk to an apparently ill person, and it happens because of the power of the understanding of the metaphysical principles of life, that the cause is in the thought. So those blocks that we have in our lives are all of the hurt that we have experienced in life. All of the, they done us wrong. And those are the parts that stop us from thinking, I can live and be joyous. That can stop us from thinking, I'm enough. I'm an individualized expression of a divine idea. By my inheritance as that, I am due all of the good that there is. Anybody ready to accept that fully?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes. And that's what it starts with, is yes, I can accept that fully in my life. And there are a couple of things we might want to do to start activating things like that. So, anybody here got resentments about anything, ever?
A little bit.
Little bit, wee bit, you know. Okay, so that resentment is actually a block to your expression of the good in your life. What a resentment is essentially holding on to this need to be right. That's real simple. I'm not going to let go of my need to be right. We were having this conversation yesterday. I'm going to be right at any cost. And boy, does that hurt. You ever been right so much that you like righted yourself right out of a job? A relationship? A relationship? These things happen in our life because somewhere along the line, we were told that we need to be right. Okay, so sometimes you do need to be right. Red wire, blue wire, white wire. You need to be right in that situation. But often the situation is not quite so critical. Often it's our ego that wants to feel justified in our position that we take. And it can go so far, like the minor parts is when we're applying that to a particular conversation and we're standing on our ground and we're right because we know what we know and we're going to be there, right? That's kind of a mild form of it. The more egregious forms of this are hatred, prejudice, intolerance. I mean, it gets pretty out of hand. There's a bunch of people running around in the world today who are so right they're willing to blow themselves up and other people with them because they're right. I have a question for that. Is that love? Is that joy? Is that peace and harmony? Obviously not. But when we're stuck in this place of rightness, we forget that we're here to experience life as love, as individuals. And when we can open ourselves up, just a little bit at a time sometimes, because sometimes it takes a little while to work on some things that are pretty deeply ingrained, to allowing a greater expression, a new thought. Perhaps they have a point of view that I need to listen to. Perhaps there's a grievance that needs to be addressed. Perhaps something that I need to change in myself will help facilitate a greater experience of love and its milder forms. Acceptance and tolerance. And so the question becomes, how do we have a new thought? Because it's very easy to get grooved into our thinking pattern. Even if we're New Thought ministers, or if you're following New Thought, we can get grooved into it. No, your thinking is wrong. Well, I don't know about that. Really, I can't know about that. But there are some suggestions that we have. So there's a couple of areas working with that are really critical to removing the blocks to the sunlight that can flow through you as joy. Since we're doing a forgiveness class now, I'm going to bring this up because I have to. Forgiveness. The first part of letting go of a resentment is forgiveness. Once you know that it's there, you've got to be able to forgive it and let it go. Because a resentment is you're being angry about something that happened long ago that the other person may or may not even be considering it anymore. So you get to relive it all the time. Yet if you forgive it, and the way we're doing this in the class we're having now, which is radical forgiveness, is that the recognition that something deeper is going on than the condition in which that resentment was generated. That there is something at a spiritual level that you needed to work out to forgive that happened there, that somebody else agreed to join the process with and be the person of your anger and your resentment. But at a deeper spiritual level, the opportunity, the golden opportunity, has arisen for you to allow forgiveness into your life so that you can be this channel of love. To be this channel of peace and tolerance and joy. So I kind of think about it and say, what if it's this simple? What if it really is as simple as, if I'm loving, love will come to me? What if it's really as simple as, if I'm joyous, joy will come to me? If I'm forgiving, forgiveness will come to me. See, that law that works on a metaphysical level is always responding to us. It is always working. It is always present. So when we generate a new thought of, I'm going to be loving, I'm going to be tolerant, I'm going to be joyous, the law responds by opportunities to experience that in our physical condition. And the flip side of that is when we sit around and worry about stuff and put our thinking on that directional plane, that too, the law does the same thing. It responds to our thinking and brings about those conditions that justify the worry. So we have situations in the world today which are terrifying, which are expressions of hatred, which are expressions of all of the negativity that we don't want in life. The objective of our life is to live joyously, happily, and in freedom of thinking and choice. That's what we all say we want, right? We're Americans. We wrote that into the Constitution. But everywhere people want that. And so if it's as simple as our starting with ourselves to change how we approach the world by changing our thinking and allowing that to be guided towards a greater expression of joy and love and harmony and peace and abundance through us, we get to experience more of that. You see, we live in a realm of infinite potential. And everything that is currently here, now, is the potential that we created in our past. It's unfolding as this mystery of life in which we all have an opportunity to be a focus of a new idea, a greater expression of love, a greater expression of good in the world today, to bring our unique talents and gifts and feelings and insights to the world, and then try to fit it into how will this make the place better. And the responsibility. Since we're free in our thinking to choose whatever we want, there's also that what comes with wanting to be joyous, happy, and free in our lives is the responsibility of starting our primary causes in thinking in that direction. So it's very difficult to be joyous and happy and free if they still did it to me. I invite you to try a little experiment this week as you go about your business. Instead of saying, they did it to me, in any way, shape, or form, say, we did it to me. Changes the perspective a little bit. There is no they in a unity of life. It's all us. So whenever you find yourself judging some other part of the world outside of you, ask yourself the question, what happens when I just turn the statement around to look what we're doing? Because there's no place that is outside of spirit. It can't be everywhere but the 3 feet around me. Or anybody else for that matter. So we're doing this together. By whatever reason or methodology that has come into the world that is today. But the freedom that we have is to create a better world for ourselves and others by how we act in the world today. You see, I know that each one of you is a perfect expression of a divine idea, embodied because that spirit wants to know itself as you today and each day. So the opportunity that we each have is to be that perfect idea, to choose the higher road, to express the good that we wish to receive. Because I can look at you and see that good. I know that each one of you is this individualized expression of love. As am I. And so it is.